Welcome back everyone. We're very near to the end, so we've gone this much and we have this much left of There's Something You Should Know About Leroy. So this is a picture of Helsha Beach, right? Our beloved Helsha Beach, and this is Prudence's guitar. So you need to let me know in the comments, what you think so far about the story. What you think about Prudence, what you think about Leroy, what you think about Shy Shy. And the other characters, Stubbs, Maud, all those guys. Let me know what you think and what you think will happen as the story develops, right? So we're pretty much near the end. Alright, chapter 19. You're a dirty old man, she whispered, pulling his face down to meet her clit. She stood so that her legs straddled the wheelchair. Stubbs heaved in delight. He clasped her supple buttocks and pulled her eagerly towards him. Dirty old man, she giggled. Come, daddy, taste it. Nice, don't it? He nodded. He didn't dare speak. He made her come what he wanted all along, the taste. Where's the money you promised? She pulled away from him and adjusted her skirt. It's on the dresser. Take how much you want. Someone shuffled at the door. Freddie, Stubbs whispered in annoyance, that little rat. She hissed her teeth and left. It was getting close to Christmas time and Inspector Lloyd was being kept on his toes. He didn't mind it. In fact, he thrived. This was just the sort of thing he was made for. Inspector Lloyd had studied the mind of the criminal and he knew how it worked. He lived in the belly of the beast. He knew how to climb out and how to climb back in, how to avoid the teeth and the stomach acids, how to keep from being flushed out the wrong way. He laughed and talked with thugs. He studied their nuances, their twitches, their eyes, their 8 different kinds of smile. Like all serious-minded men, he started the day early. A hearty breakfast courtesy of the wife, a furtive scan of the headlines to keep abreast, an hour or so of his favorite morning talk show, very comprehensive, some more coffee, strapped on his paraphernalia, and he was off. He briefed his men, noted their observations and suggestions, gleaned the holding room to see what scum had been scooped up during the night. Usually he recognized them all. Then he was back on the road. He spent most of the day on the road. The matter of the route taxis was an annoying one. He usually relegated it to the rookies, but every once in a while he went to see about it himself. There was hardly a group of workers more undisciplined than the route taxi drivers. Most were not licensed or registered, nor did they want to be. They were proud of their indiscipline. It was their badge of honor. It made them fit in with their peers and gave them a sense of can't-catch-me-ness that seemed inherent in the hearts of Portmore people, part of their culture. Given the opportunity to come clean and live straight, the taxi drivers would choose not to. They would certainly scoff. It gave them a thrill to elude the police, to tempt fate for as long as they could, and then speed off at the last minute to the frantic shrieks and sometimes delight of the passengers. Then they would converge and complain about the plight of their trade and the injustice meted out to them by the authorities. There was a proliferation of illegal taxi operators, and Inspector Lloyd considered it a plague. He also felt that the passengers were shirking their responsibility to protect their own safety by taking these taxis that did not bear a public passenger plate. Many of these taxi drivers were shady characters who were mixed up in all manner of crime and profanity, not to mention their trysts with schoolgirls at certain unconscionable hours of the day. No wonder it was that so many taxi drivers came up missing. some found with a bullet to the head, some never found. Inspector Lloyd was making his rounds when he saw Cheyenne at the bus stop. He pulled up. "Where you off to, little lady?" "Mobay, constable." She hoped he didn't mind. That's what she had heard everyone else call him. "Oh, nice. Going back home then?" "Just for a little while, constable. Just going to visit my father to see if things have calmed down." She didn't tell anyone that Ferdy had lent her some money for the trip. They had made a pact that it would be between them. "Okay then, little miss. Take care on the road then, here?" "Okay, constable." She would take a taxi to Spanish Town, then a bus to Montego Bay. She hoped to be gone for only a few days. Maud wasn't sure she should have let her go, but family was family. If there was any hope at reconciliation and redemption, Cheyenne should at least try. Cheyenne returned after 5 days and seemed happy, rejuvenated. "The country angry with you," Maud said. "You even put on little weight." Cheyenne smiled. She had spoken to her father and he had promised not to hit her again, she said. But she wasn't sure she should go back fully yet. Maud said she could stay for as long as she wanted, till she was extra sure. The trips to Helsha Beach became less and less, and the evening gatherings became more scant. Everyone noted the uneasy tension between Leroy and Prudence, and since no one wanted to witness it, trigger it, or perpetuate it, they avoided it. Leroy and Prudence had been a sort of cohesive glue that held the group together, and since they were at odds, the group was fickle. Sometimes it happened that only Leroy and Cheyenne sat on the bridge, she assuming the role of traitor, and he assuming the role of Leroy, who had done nothing wrong. Cheyenne had been studying Leroy, and Leroy had been studying Cheyenne. They were rooster and hen studying each other, seeing who could peck who. Well, clearly the rooster, but you never know. He watched her all the time. She watched him all the time. It was a game no one won, but neither was willing to concede. She noticed changes in him, and he noticed changes in her. Tit for tat. On one of those evenings, they were alone on the bridge. Gunshots rang into the air in rapid succession. Machine gun fire. It was crazy. In the scheme, our little scheme, Leroy grabbed her and they dashed behind the bridge. He would have liked to tell it this way, but rather, she grabbed him and they dashed behind the bridge. He had been so shocked. Tables were heard being overturned. Another round of fire. Then the wail of police sirens. And another round of fire. Then quiet. Then people scampering, screaming, talking like mad. These 3 boys had been killed. A group of them had been playing dominoes a few blocks away. Some men had pulled up and opened fire. The police fire had claimed one of the gunmen as collateral. 4 bodies lay along the roadway, still appearing to be oozing blood, even minutes after being killed. Or at least so it seemed. In a while, the bodies were covered, the area sealed. The news gatherers descended. The eyewitnesses argued. They sat in the swale a good while after the commotion had subsided. Leroy was still shaking, his wrist a little limp, his heart racing, his pants wet. "I'm a bit used to this in Mobay," Cheyenne said, more like an apology than a reassurance. "I used to spend some time with my cousins along Barnett Street." Weeks later, Inspector Lloyd stopped by. He had a worried look on his face, though Stubbs' face looked peculiarly happy. The old man had been wearing a permanent smile for quite some time. It was almost an idiotic grin. Very annoying at a time when the inspector needed someone to share in his misery. A whole lot more cocaine been flooding in, and they're getting really high-grade stuff now. Some new links seem to have been made. he confided to Stubbs. The old man smiled, delighted. When he got his hands on those rascals, he would squeeze their necks so hard they would piss blood, the inspector swore to himself. The war on crime was a never-ending war. Sometimes the very people on your side were the ones fighting against you, in cahoots with the lowlifes and criminal elements. The force itself needed some weeding and pruning, if not a full-scale purge. Fungicide, insecticide, herbicide, you name it, he would use it. It was sickening to observe what crime did to a community. And then, to be the one responsible to stem it, to constantly have your finger in the dike with more holes forming around you. It was disheartening and somewhat demoralizing. But to surrender, to unplug your finger, would mean to give the sea free rein, to eat away at the dike until a catastrophic wave lay claim to everything. And it would. That's what waves do. End of chapter 19. Chapter 20. It's shock and awe, it's challenging taboos, it's what artists do. I take your point, it would make a statement. So you'll do it? Maybe. What exactly would that statement be, by the way? Wayne stroked his tiny beard. Leroy too was pondering his version of what the statement might be. The artist is the God in man. Art is the language of God. God speaks most eloquently in nudist art, mused Wayne. He had a thing for the complexity of simplicity. He had hoped to come up with something less abstract, but he knew Leroy would understand. The point is, we have to do this, Lee. It's never been done in Jamaica before. We have to make this statement. It is our responsibility as artists. We live in one of the most homophobic countries in the world, Leroy commented. Imagine the outcry, he chuckled. Men don't even want to sit in the front seat of a taxi beside the driver. Idiots, Wayne exclaimed. Idiots and hypocrites. Babes, you want some sandwiches and juice? Leroy, can I get you anything? Marva stuck her head through the kitchen door. Just some lemonade, thanks, Hans. Some for me too, added Leroy. Not too sweet, Marva. I ran the idea by Willis. He seemed open to it, but talk around school is, he'll surely flunk me if I do, said Wayne. They were in the living room of his home in Brayton. Final exhibition is in almost 2 months. This is the last series I want to add. You want to push it for finals then, or just wait till you branch out? Then he can kiss your ass. I'm pushing it for now. He can kiss my ass now. I've never seen an artist so closed and backward. Isn't objectivity the hallmark of our trade? He seems to think he's very open and avant-garde, chuckled Leroy. Avant-garde, my granny? Babes, here's the lemonade. I'm going out to the shopping center. Soon come back. You're going out in that? Wayne shouted. Marva seemed embarrassed, but her countenance told that she would not back down. Everything about her was very deliberate. Her eyes, her stance, the 2 inches of cloth that was strapped around her body, very deliberate. Look, Wayne, we spoke about this. Let me wear what I want to wear. I'm a grown woman. You said you love me the way I am. Let me be who I am. When since did you become the woman who leaves the house in 2 ounces of clothes? That's skimpy even for the beach. You're almost naked. Look, Marva, no woman of mine is leaving the house looking like that. You have no problem with Prudence wearing it? Marva darted her eyes at Leroy, waiting and hoping that he would intervene, even if not in her favor. Leroy averted his eyes and said nothing. How come you have no problem with Prudence and yet you have a problem with me? I told you it's because I'm fat. Listen, you know what? Wear what you want. Do whatever the hell you want. What's the point in having a man if you don't care what he says? Go about your business as you wish. Marva paused momentarily, as if to reconsider, then she flung the bag over her shoulder and left. "Soon come back," she said softly in the tone of a truce. No sooner was she out the door than they heard whistling and cheering coming from the road. Leroy peeped through the blinds. "Marva has a lot of fans," he chuckled. "Let her do what she wants. I'm tired of it," said Wayne. They sipped their lemonade gingerly for a little while, then each made one big gulp and finished it off, like rounds of tequila on a dare. "Listen, Lee, you and me, nude. I've sketched 7 poses. Here, have a look at them." He showed the sketches to Leroy, who took his time perusing them. What is our statement, Wayne?" "Men should be comfortable with men, naked or otherwise, just as women are comfortable with women. 2 women can embrace each other on the street without people drawing the conclusion that they are lesbian. Why can't men? I feel love towards my male friends. I sometimes want to embrace my male friends. Don't you?" "Sometimes." He kept his eyes focused on the sketches. "And it's such hypocrisy when we pretend as if we don't. It's an aspect of our nature that cannot be freely expressed. Agree, Lee?" "I'm thinking 7 60 by 20 frames, all sketches, of course, charcoal. I'd want you to start posing tomorrow if you agree. I'll just combine my images from the self-portraits I've been making." "And Willis?" "I told you he can kiss my ass, literally." But he secretly hoped that Willis would approve. The man may be backward, but his opinion carried much weight among the panel. "So, what's this thing with Marva?" "I don't know. She's just all wacky lately, wanting to go about dressed in strings, saying I've got issues with her body. Geez, I adore that girl." "I know it." "She doesn't know it. Hope is just a phase. I keep hoping Prudence will grow out of hers." "What's with you two anyway?" "Phases, Wayne, phases," Leroy chuckled. "Just don't let a good thing slip out of your hand. There are many who want her." "Including you?" Leroy meant to ask, but he didn't. "So listen, Lee, I'm really excited about this. Not that I think it will change anything immediately. I'm not naive. It's been said, the people who have the frame of mind to stop and ponder your artwork already think the way you want them to think. The people whose perception you hope to change do not have the frame of mind to stop and ponder your work. Ironic. When will the artist realize his job is futile?" His signature chuckle. And this, coming from an artist, Wayne slapped his knee in delight. "Our job here is futile, but still we do it, or else we would be futile." They talked for at least 2 hours more. The afternoon was fading. The sun was wrapping things up, gathering her children about her for her long trek westwards. She called them to her one by one, such beautiful children. The streets of Brayton were generally unsafe for residents and visitors alike. Was it something about being an artist that made one feel immune to society's ailments, an unaffected observer trying to make effect? Wayne had said, the artist is the god in man. Leroy knew that Prudence felt free to do as she chose. He was aware of this lack of inhibition in her, had cautioned her against it at times, but was he being a hypocrite now, strolling nonchalantly down the road in a community where people were often shot in bundles, sometimes 8 at a time? Wayne had been ringing her phone constantly, in fact, since Leroy had left, and she was not responding. He figured she was upset with him, but something inside him knew it was beyond that. Marva never stayed upset with him for more than an hour, nor he with her. It was a weakness they shared. So when the police car pulled up at his gate, he was not shocked, just terrified. But Marva was alive, just shaken. What happened? Well, I suppose she will fill you in on the details, but she's one lucky lady. Attempted rape. She's gonna need to testify, but it could have been much worse. Marva wore clothes that were not her own. A policewoman's maybe, or perhaps they have extra clothes at the police station to cover up the bodies of women who leave home half naked and are dragged behind shopping centers. They caught him. A man heard me screaming. He took my phone too, but they ran him down and caught him. She was shaking and sobbing. It's all right, Marvs. Don't talk now. You're safe now. The policeman shook his head as he opened the car door. What kind of man lets his woman leave the house like that? He sucked his teeth. End of chapter 20. So on now to chapter 21. The marks on the walls of the bathroom came from diverse sources, mainly pencil, the preferred tool of the basic school pupil. But there were also scribbling, artwork, and explicit graffiti in crayons, markers, pens, even excrement. Maud was not naive enough to have thought that the lewd remarks etched on the concrete walls had been done by anyone else but the kindergarten-age students. Well, maybe one or two of the older siblings who sometimes came to collect them after school. But the vast majority had been done by the Rugrats themselves. Maud knew this. She had been privy to many an altercation between the teachers and their little charges, who were sometimes caught under the table, engaged in hanky-panky. No sooner had Maud scrubbed the walls with bleach and scraped away the wax and stains than they would be posted again. She sometimes didn't bother, but sometimes she could not resist her maternal resolve to start fresh and give them one more chance, and so she bothered. This was one such morning. She had her heavy-duty bucket full to the brim with water and disinfectant. She had her mop and wash rag. She had on her thick yellow rubber gloves that could handle anything, and her plastic apron to protect her pink ancillary uniform. Everything checked. She took to scraping, scrubbing, and scouring. These toilets had been installed at a lower level than normal to comply with the stature of the Rugrats, most of whom were well under 4 feet tall. The toilet bowls and urinals needed extra care. First left a while to soak in caustic soda to remove stains, then thoroughly cleaned. Maud was pleased with the progress she had made. 3 bathrooms in all, each with male and female stalls of 3 cubicles. Finally, she swept and mopped the floors and took a final satisfied glance at her handiwork before going to the ancillary quarters. These were 2 rooms towards the back of the school compound, repository for unwanted hodgepodge, and a refuge for teachers who needed somewhere to crash during the day. This was where Maud, the night watchman, the gardener, and the canteen workers kept their belongings, and where they congregated in times of distress to compare their notes about their plight as minimum wage workers. Maud had been working at the basic school now for 3 months. She had quit her job with the Jaspers. The tedious climb up Norbrook Drive in the mornings and even the descent in the evenings had taken too much of a challenge for the arthritis that threatened to make a cripple out of her one day. She was sure of it. The basic school was a stone's throw from the house, literally, and while the wages were less, the hours were shorter and more flexible. She kept the premises clean. This included classrooms, bathrooms, and staff facilities. It was a small basic school of 80 or so rowdy critters and a scant teaching staff of no more than 5 at any given time. The work often proved taxing, but there were actually periods during the day when she could take off her shoes and put her feet up so the blood could circulate. It was 8:30 in the morning when she got the news. Ferdy had been sent over to her from the primary school on the adjacent property. He had been running. He was panting and looking worried. He handed his mother a handwritten note that the secretary had hurriedly scribbled. Freddie was sick and would be taken to hospital as soon as the ambulance arrived. She should come immediately. In her fluster, Maud nearly slammed into the glass door because she forgot to open it. She was even more perturbed when the secretary kept reminding her, "Miss Maud, remember you'll have to pay for the ambulance." She was poor, not stupid. Maud rested her hands on Freddie, and he felt like a roast breadfruit just out of the coal fire. Her hands jerked along with his. He was having convulsions. "My belly, Mom, my belly," Freddie kept saying. At least he knew she was there. He was conscious, but he seemed to stare right through her, with pupils wide and dribbling slightly from the corners of his mouth. Once he sat up promptly and reeked, and the attendant scrambled for a container, but nothing came. The paranoia and delirium that had taken hold of him was nothing like the euphoria that the cocaine had given him. The tiny morsel that he had shared among himself, Gregory and Dave in the boys' bathroom at recess had flung him over the edge. The other two had been fine, just panicky when Freddie had started to shake and grab his stomach and roll to the ground. Overdose, the triage doctor had said with one preliminary scan. Some benzo will bring him round. Hook him up to some saline to restore his fluids. Very dehydrated, temperature really high. Freddie was in a coma for 2 days. Maud sat by his side the whole time. Prudence and Primrose took turns as her seconds in command. And Freddie twitched at first, and then he came in, groggily, bewildered and hallucinating. He thought that Prudence was a spider, but he didn't scream. He just asked why such a big spider was sitting on his bed. He seemed cool with the idea, except for her size. Then he went back to sleep without waiting for an explanation. He revived again later in the afternoon, but this time he was coherent. The nurses tended to him kindly and seemed genuinely concerned. Maud thanked them and promised herself secretly to bring them a little something on her next visit. It wasn't yet time to ask, but everyone wanted to know. Where had Freddie gotten the drugs, and how could he have been so foolish to try and sell it at the primary school? Maud was in shock, but not denial. She knew that Freddie sometimes moved with the wrong crowd. She figured he wouldn't rat on them either, probably for fear of his life. She wondered what would be her next step as owner and sole proprietor of this business called Freddie. She wondered if she should even bother to send news of this to Benjamin, who had so many problems of his own. "They don't expect him to live much longer now," Prudence had said of her father. "He needs dialysis twice per week, and he has pneumonia. You should see him, Mum. He looks like a stick." That had been 2 weeks ago, and now this. Maud decided. She would not bother to tell Benji. Let him go to his grave thinking that she had done a fair enough job with all the children. She had wrestled with the question for donkey years. Who was to be blamed for Benji being in prison? Was it Benji, or Maud, or Alfred? Who could blame a woman who finds herself unwed and pregnant with 3 other children, living under the roof of in-laws who hated her guts for what reason she didn't know? Who could blame her for being miserable and edgy and for raising hell when her brother-in-law refused to eat the breakfast that she had gotten up ready to prepare for the family as a token of goodwill? And who could blame a man for flaring up at his sister-in-law for offering him food when he wasn't in the mood to eat because he had lost his job the night before and was about to lose his Lada motor car, though she could not have known this? And who can blame a man for getting into a rage to hear his brother refer to his woman as a worthless slut who bred like a rabbit and had nothing to show for her entanglement with men, except 3 hungry belly jingbag picnics and 1 more on the way? A cycle of misunderstandings, 1 in prison, dying of kidney failure, one free, dying of shame, one dead outright. A man robbed of his life, a man robbed of his brother, two women, each robbed of her husband, children robbed of their fathers, a boy in a hospital bed just shaking off the cobwebs of a coma, thinking that his sister was a spider. No, there was no benefit to telling Benji. Let him die thinking that she had managed without him, and that his gallantry, however rash, had not been in vain. It was shy, said Freddie, though no one had asked him anything. He sat up in bed very perky, as if coming to senses for the first time in his life. Shy gave me the cocaine and asked me to sell it at school. My God, Freddie, you're delusional, said Prudence. She shook her head and held on to his hand. It's true, continued Freddie. Shy gave me the powder, and she been borrowing Freddie's money and not paying back. Ask Freddie. She borrowed his gardening money. Listen, Freddie, if you want to talk, then talk and tell us who these boys is, who really give you the drugs, so we can put a stop to this and set constable on them case. Stop trying to blame poor Shy. It's true, Freddie insisted. She been taking Freddie's money, and she been collecting the letters that come for Stubbs and not telling him. And she let Stubbs eat her out. I see them many times. And she collect money from Stubbs too. Have mercy, what a boy lie, Maud exclaimed. She put her hands on her head. The nurse discreetly left the room, her eyes opened wide. It's true, she let Stubbs eat her out, it's true. Freddie was becoming flustered. All right, Freddie, calm down. Get some sleep, Prudence tried to comfort him. Stop tell lie on poor Shy. Maud was becoming really angry and bitter. Disappointment filled her voice. Tell us exactly who gave you the cocaine or shut your clap. You are a wicked little boy, Freddie, a wicked little boy. End of chapter 21. What do you think? You think Shy been doing all these things? Is it really Shy been doing all these things? Catch me in the next videos and let's find out.